What life area does Saturn correspond to in your natal birth chart? That's what I'm going to be discussing on this video, all about Saturn through all 12 houses in the zodiac. Now, Saturn as a planet is the last of the planets that can be seen with a naked eye. It is the planet that represents the boundary between the planets that were known for centuries since the beginning of time, and there's a barrier between Saturn and then Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which are modern rulers of signs. Those planets were discovered after Mercury through Saturn, much more recently. So Saturn represents limitations. It represents blocks and challenges that we have on our lives and, restrictions when it comes to whatever life area that Saturn corresponds for you in your natal birth chart. And it represents what kinds of things that we need to work really, really hard at achieving that are not going to come easy. Saturn is not an easy energy. There's no get rich quick schemes or have it on the platter for you. Saturn really demands that you put in the hard work to achieve your purpose and to achieve your goals that you set out to achieve. It's this energy that wants you to learn the karmic lessons that Saturn is asking you to learn. And karma is a huge part of it. And so these lessons are not the easy lessons that you hear and that you can easily remember. They are hard, lifelong lessons that you learn and struggle with and may have to work very hard at achieving these goals and these lessons as you go through your life. And so, when it comes to Saturn, it really is the taskmaster, the father figure who demands so much out of you and rewards you, doesn't spoil you, but rewards you for your hard work in the end. The more hard work you put in, the nicer Saturn is to you. Saturn eases off on you. It's not so demanding and so frustrating and so hard. However, there is a humility that needs to be learned and a self-acceptance of getting down to reality when it comes to Saturn, focusing on what you need to do, getting grounded, and getting what you need to do accomplished. And so, again, Saturn rewards hard work. And Saturn is going to be much better for you if you yourself put in the hard work, because Saturn is a malefic planet. It's very different than Jupiter, which gives a lot of blessings and abundance. And, once you go toward an opportunity with Jupiter, if you take one step toward the gods, they take 10 steps towards you. But with Saturn, it's a different story. You need to put in that work, and you need to do it. So that's just a little overview on what Saturn means. If you want to know more on this planet and what it actually entails, I do have a video on it, which I will link in the description box below so that you can get the full scoop on what the planet Saturn is all about in astrology. So, for the purpose of this video, I have time-stamped it. So this would be the intro of the video, or what the planet Saturn means, whatever timestamp I decide to create for this. And then throughout the video, there are these timestamps corresponding to each of the 12 houses. So I'm going to go through all 12 of the houses. This is going to be a long video, but you can certainly short circuit it by listening to the house placement that is in your natal birth chart that Saturn is in that house. Saturn being about goals and, ambitions and things like that, and promises that you make. Saturn's about the promises that you make that you're going to fulfill. Whatever video that I make, it's going to be out there from now on. It's going to be public from now on. I'm not going to make any more unlisted videos. So that's something that I'm going to commit to, which is very Saturnian about commitment. Committing to, what you say that you're going to commit to. And, you're in it for the long haul. It's very Saturn. You're in it for the long haul. You put in a lot of work, and the results are there for you for the long term. Just like Rome was not meant to last a day, it was meant to last for, forever. So, now throughout the whole video, there are timestamps for your house. So wherever Saturn falls in your natal chart, depending upon which house it falls in, you want to listen to that house and also the sign that Saturn is in your birth chart as well. There might be some similarities when it comes to, so Cancer is the fourth house, Leo is the fifth house, Aries is the first house. So you may want to listen to the house that corresponds to the sign that Saturn is in your natal chart, because there may be some similarities when it comes to that house versus, compared to the sign that Saturn is in. So without further ado, I'm going to start by talking about Saturn in the first house. So if you have Saturn in the first house, then it means astrologically that Saturn is probably close to the ascendant when you were born, because the first house represents your ascendant. Whatever sign that your ascendant is in your natal chart, that usually represents that sign falls in your first house. So I'm a Sagittarius rising. So Sagittarius would be my first house. Capricorn would be my second house. Aquarius, my third house. Pisces, my fourth house, and so on. So maybe your birth wasn't very easy if Saturn is close to the ascendant. Maybe your mother was probably in labor for a long time. Maybe that was the case. And so in terms of your appearances, because the first house represents your personality and your physical appearance and your physical body, and the ascendant is the mask that you wear. It's like, it's very interesting because we think of the ego as the mask that you wear, the little outfits and things like that. But in I think it's esoteric astrology. I'm not quite sure, but the ascendant could be the soul, representing your soul. So your sun's your ego, and the ascendant is the soul. So, in terms of how you dress and present yourself, it might be, you might be thin or slim. You may have a stern look to you, and when you smile, you may look very different. So you look stern, very sort of prim and proper, very mature, very serious. And so you may dress in clothes that make you look serious. You may find discomfort in your own skin. You may feel badly or insecure about yourself and about your body for some reason. So you may have to grow up fast and to be mature very, very quickly. That may be a possibility here. Maybe you had to grow up early or become an adult when you were very young. Maybe you had to take on a lot of responsibilities in your life. when you were very young, to help out the family and that kind of thing. And so you may not have had a childhood where you grew up in a gradual way where, children have that time to play and be with other children and, have fun and have those childlike memories. But for you, it might have been different where your childhood was sort of short-circuited, where you just really got to the adult stage of life at a very young age. So, you may be old when you're young, and as you get um, older, you become younger. It's just the reverse is all metaphorical, versus actually being young or old. They're switched around. So your parents might have been strict. That's another possibility, very demanding, perhaps judgmental to you in some way or another. Um, And so maybe your parents were unemotional and cold, who, that your parents might not have been there emotionally for you and you needed to, emotional nurturing or whatever it may be. Maybe they weren't there for you. Maybe your parents were judgmental of you. And maybe your parents were very conservative and traditional. And so you probably took on the role of the provider to your family, bringing home the bacon, putting food on the table, um, doing all these kind of things like that, providing the money, providing things for people. So you may have had to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and that you could only count and trust yourself, that you couldn't trust anybody else to fulfill your own needs and wants. You learn to be self-sufficient very, very early. And this becomes something that you really keep in your rucksack for life, where you feel like you are the only one that has to, that can fulfill your wants and needs, that no one can help. And that's certainly not true. Um, Dependency doesn't have to be a bad word. Codependency is where we get into some shadow content when it comes to overly relying on other people and not, putting ourselves first when it comes to getting in alignment with our individuality. But this lesson of having to take care and fend for yourself was probably something that you learned early on. So you may have a burden of the responsibilities of life on your shoulders. You're probably very hard on yourself, very judgmental and self-critical of yourself. You probably put a lot of pressure on yourself. So that may be a possibility with this placement. So it can be a difficult placement in that way. And when you can loosen up and when you can let go and accept yourself for who you are and love yourself with all your quirks and perks and be in the center stage of your life where you allow yourself to take up as much space as you want to, you can find true healing when it comes to self-respect, when it comes to recognizing that you're in the driver's seat of your own life and you can steer your ship whichever path that you want to, and you can sort of steer your heart in whatever ways the wind carries it. That becomes something that is very empowering with Saturn in the first house, is that you can be self-sufficient, that you can be self-domineering, that you can take the reins of your own life, that you can be in charge of your own life and really control your own destiny. And really determine your fate. So, on the downside, there may be some guilt and anxiety when it comes to this particular placement. So, maybe guilt and anxiety. Um, so don't feel bad about asserting yourself. You may be shyer around, others, especially as a child. Maybe you're very reserved and cautious, and serious in terms of your nature, sort of stoic, maybe not very friendly. That could be, where there's a cold, stern, um, exterior, where on the surface you may not appear very friendly, but then when people get to know you, they find a treasure chest of gold and gems and profound wisdom that lies inside of you. So there may be challenges when it comes to accepting love and care from others. You may have low self-esteem. That can be a huge thing here. And you can feel lonely at times. Loneliness and feelings of isolation is definitely a possibility and something that needs to be taken in consideration when we're looking at this particular placement. So maybe you feel inadequate. So there's inadequacy. So building up your self-confidence is really key here. You may be cautious and risk averse. Maybe you get yourself stuck in your life because you're afraid to take risks. And the saying is go big or go home. So it's important to be open to growing and expanding and taking risks and making big moves and bold decisions and taking giant leaps of faith and taking action to move your life in the direction that you want it to move in. So this cautious tendency of holding back from living the life that you want to and taking action to make that happen could be a downfall for you. And so you may have a lot of responsibility from other people. That may be something that needs to be taken in consideration of how you're balancing out the responsibilities that you have for yourself and the responsibilities that you have for others. So you learn the value of hard work and you got used to it. You learn the value of that things take time and hard work in general. So persistence and discipline are also, um, possibilities here where um, you may be very persistent and disciplined when it comes to achieving your goals, and you're very committed towards your goals. Once you set your sights on something, you can really go after it. So the first house corresponds to the zodiac sign Aries, and Aries is a very driven, energetic, very steadfast and determined sign when it comes to getting what they desire, and have that be, in physical form. So you also have a strong focus for getting what you want. You may be born with a need for discipline, a need to have a structure or, routine, and to set your sights on a goal and put in the hard work to achieve it. So you may be born to fulfill societal expectations, and you genuinely want to be conventional and fulfill societal expectations. And you want to also appear respectable and trustworthy and dependable to others. That is something that you really take seriously. Is, am I an authority figure here? Am I the leader in this situation? Am I somebody that people can count on when a problem arises or whatever the case may be? So you can definitely be leaders and authority figures. So you're learning patience. You're learning that things take time and to be in it for the long haul. You can't have results immediately. Um, and so taking step-by-step actions is also something that's super important here. So, and another possibility is that because Saturn represents longevity and something in place for the long term, and the first house represents yourself, you may live a longer life than others. Um, so I'm just throwing that out there into the open. Now, if we were to look at Saturn in the second house, we're just sort of flipping gears, we're switching gears, we're looking at the Saturn placement. This is a placement of self-reliance and hard work, where patience, taking step-by-step actions and being patient for the results to manifest, this is where it can really be put into hard-nosed practice. So there can be hard lessons when it comes to money because the second house represents finances and money and moolah and those kind of things like that. So there may be difficulties in attaining material resources. You may find it more challenging to attain money and physical possessions. You may have had few resources that were material resources available to you as a child. It may be very likely that you grew up in a poor household where material resources were tight and there wasn't a whole lot of them. Maybe it could be that getting into what I'm going to be discussing later, you may be afraid of losing money or possessions, even if you have a lot of money or possessions. There may be this fear of being homeless, of not having any possessions to rely on. So you may have to start working at a young age. Um, and so you may have to work very, very young and, get the money and live paycheck to paycheck and that kind of thing like that. So there is a need to take responsibility of your life. And so you may also be afraid of asking for money and resources as well. You may feel poorer than your peers around you. Even if you have a lot of money and a lot of resources, you may feel a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-esteem about the material possessions that you have. And you tie that self-worth to your material possessions. And when you compare yourself to your peers, you feel like you have less than them. So there may be caution when it comes to making money and attaining resources. You may be very cautious in that regard. And so you can be frugal as well. And so you have a strong sense of self-discipline when it comes to attaining money and physical possessions. You may have difficulty expressing your emotions and being emotionally open and vulnerable and warm to others. There may be a reserve there with Saturn in the second house. There may be difficulty connecting with others as well. So building self-confidence and a strong sense of self-worth is key if you have Saturn in the second house, because there may be a lack of self-esteem. So if you build the confidence, then the money and the resources will manifest for you in the physical. The more you value yourself and the more you feel worthy, the more that you will then attract in the physical of resources. That's how the law of attraction works. Is it's an outer reflection of the inner world within yourself. So valuing yourself is key here. So you may be very serious and responsible when it comes to your finances. And you may work very, very hard to achieve material assets with a lot of persistence when it comes to your efforts. So you understand at a deep level that good things take time. That, in order to have the life of your dreams and to have the things that you want to, it takes long hours, a lot of time, the necessary effort and hard work, and the energy that you put into achieving your goals. All of that wraps together in a potion of results and success. And you really understand that at a deep level. Um, and so there may be some delays when it comes to financial success. So you may become more mature as you age, and wiser as you age. And maybe you can assert yourself better later in life with regards to money and other material resources. Um, and so you can make a lot of money with old things and other material resources very, very strongly. There's a talent that can be cultivated with, making money, which can become a superpower once you overcome that kryptonite that is in the financial and material realms. You can cultivate a talent and master the art of doing your magic in the material world with making money and attaining possessions. And so you understand the long haul, um, and the experience that you can get from the work that you do. And then after that work comes material results. And those material results are meant to last for the long term. Now we're going to take a look at Saturn in the third house in the natal birth chart. So the third house represents communication. It represents interactions with your neighbors. It represents a bunch of different things, but it ultimately comes down to learning and understanding the world through your own mental perspective. When it comes to the third house, we're data collecting. We're gathering information about our immediate environment. The third house also corresponds to learning. As I said before, primary education, school, grade school, which pertains to grades 1 through 12, elementary, middle, and high school. So if we put Saturn in with the third house, we have somebody who is very serious when it comes to their communication. You may speak in a very serious manner. You may choose your words carefully. You may not say a whole lot. You may not be a person of many words. But you speak in a way that's serious and cautious. Um, you may be somebody who listens very well to others, and you can definitely use this to your advantage when you're not oversharing or overspeaking or talking too much. When you are sitting back and allowing the other person to speak their truth and speak their mind, you can really listen to that person and really observe and take in what they're saying in a very, very deep, profound level. And when it comes to the act of listening, it takes us being silent in order to hear and fully comprehend what that other person is saying. So listening may be a really strong asset that you hold inside yourself very strongly. And so another aspect of Saturn in the fourth house is having difficulties with learning. That may be a huge issue. You may have all kinds of learning difficulties when it comes to comprehending information, learning, taking information in, putting and dispersing information out, retaining the information, and applying the information. This may be very, very difficult for you because Saturn represents challenges and obstacles that we have to get through, and we have to work very, very hard at that. So that may be super strong in your sort of spectrum of what you call your life. And so there may be challenges in school and primary education. There may be delays when it comes to learning. You may be behind in your learning and in your education. Maybe there are some delays with your education. Maybe there's delays in going to college and finding your vocation for what you want to do in your life. Or maybe there were delays in the actual primary school environment where learning math problems was difficult. Learning reading was more challenging, and it could have been more challenging to learn how to read and write and do those basic skills which you can apply to your life on a day-to-day basis. So the school environment might be something that you have to work harder at achieving and mastering in your own life. So, you may be very shy when you're young. You may not say a whole lot. You may be more introverted or more reflective or more introspective when it comes to your interactions with others. So, speaking up with others may be more challenging for you. It may be more challenging to assert yourself and speak your truth and express yourself the way that you genuinely want to. This may be a case where you find yourself in a dotted situation where you can't seem to get a word in edgewise because it may be difficult to speak up. It may be that you were sort of trained that your self-expression has limitations, and you may have been put into a system of your familyhood life in your community where speaking up is not necessarily something that is wise to do. It may be that you were taught and conditioned not to speak up and to not assert yourself. That could be one possibility, but there's certainly many different possibilities for this. So you feel the need to communicate and work harder than your peers. For some reason or another, you feel that strong need to work harder and to be more ambitious and be more avid and be more in depth and perspective and be more putting in more effort than your peers. So there can be mental challenges when it comes to this placement. There could be speech issues, or there could be certain learning difficulties which you need to rise above in this lifetime. And so you can really be very disciplined and very hardworking when it comes to learning. That is a real strong asset that you possess, is the ability to focus, the ability to put the effort and energy into whatever you're learning about. And you could really do that in a very, very strong and dynamic way. And when it comes to learning, you really take your studies very, very seriously. And you learn very well when you can apply yourself and when you can put the hard work in, you really can go far. Because remember, Saturn represents an area of life that requires a lot of hard work. It's not going to come easy. It may not be the luckiest or the smoothest process, but once you put that hard work in, it is certainly worth it in the long run. So there may be a preference that you may feel for routines and schedules in your daily life. And so you may rely on your objective sense of reality, on your logical sense of reality, rather than relying on your emotions. That may be a really, really strong case where your logical mind, your rational mind, your pragmatic mind may be stronger and more powerful than your emotions. And you may revert back to that more than your actual emotions. You would also be detail oriented, focusing on the little details of a situation. You're great at problem solving, finding solutions to issues, finding the cog in the machine that needs fixed, finding the issue and sorting it out. That may be something that can be a good thing with this placement. And so when it comes to your speaking and when it comes to your speech, you do not beat around the bush. You get right to the point and you're direct and you're blunt about what you want to say. You're honest, you're straightforward, honest communication. That is really your style of communication. If you have this placement, you believe in truth, you believe in honesty and being absolutely dead on when it comes to your points. Um, and so you may also prefer to work alone rather than with other people. Um, and so you may be very sensitive when it comes to other people's words and what they have to say. When someone says something, you may take it personally. And it's not about taking it personally. What people say is a projection and is a reflection of their own reality, not yours. And so, if you can take other people less seriously, then that can be something that you can work on this lifetime, is not taking what people say to heart all the time if it's, critical judgments of you or, whatever it may be. It's taking it in stride and taking it in healthy detachment and with healthy boundaries, with a healthy sense of self-respect. So it may be, as I said before, more difficult to express your thoughts and it may be more challenging to communicate about what it is that you want. There may be challenges in childhood. There could be challenges when it comes to getting along with your peers, and relatives and also your siblings as well. So you may have emotional scars from your immediate environment, which you carry around on your day-to-day rucksack for life ongoing. Um, and so these emotional scars may be pretty darn powerful and pretty darn debilitating if you do not let them get the better of you. If you can rise above these challenges and rise above all of the minutia of what you have to deal with in your life, then that can be something wonderful for you to work on. So, you may feel a sense of isolation or loneliness in your immediate environment. Um, your immediate environment may be more depressing to you. You may feel insecure about how you connect with the world. That may be something to this as well. And it may be hard to feel welcomed and like you truly belong and you're truly a part of your community because you could feel shunned or alienated or separate or different from your community and not that sense of warm and nurturing that you want from your community, because that's what the third house really rules over is your community, and your immediate environment. So there could be difficulty with getting along with others in your immediate environment. It may be harder for you to engage in small talk as well. Um, and so you may not be very popular in your local community. Um, and so it's really about becoming more comfortable in your local community, and you become more comfortable as you get older. Short trips may be very tiring for you, like, running around with errands and around your community. They may be more exhausting for you as well. You may have speech difficulties if you have this placement, because Saturn represents delays in things, and the third house is communication. So you may have a speech impediment or something along those lines. And it's so interesting because why I don't have this placement, because there's certain learning difficulties that I had when I was growing up. And now that I'm 19 and I'm an adult. And I did have a speech impediment for the longest time. My R's were really, really inconsistent. And when I would say work, it would sound like woke. It would sound like I was saying an O instead of an R sound. And so, but I didn't have this placement. So, um, anyway, um, there may be, again, going back to what I was saying about a fear of self-expression. And so, you learn best when it comes to your learning, through the intellectual, as arena of life. You learn best in a structured way. And so you may need more time to process information as well. And so your way of thinking may be very different and very unique from people in your world. Um, that may be something to this as well. So you're also great at keeping secrets. You could do very well with working with confidential data. And so it's really about being in the moment and focusing on the now, focusing on your immediate environment, focusing here in the present moment. That is something to really keep in mind. Um, on the high level, you could do very well in school and you're able to get tasks done in a fast and efficient way and check off all the boxes and do what you need to do in that regard. And so you may also do very well as an investigator or a researcher. Those fields may be very rewarding and fulfilling to you. Now I'm going to move on to Saturn in the fourth house. So the fourth house represents your family. It represents your home. It represents where you came from, your lineage, your emotional foundations. The fourth house represents the IC of the chart, which is the lowest point of the chart, which represents your roots. It represents a sense of emotional grounding in your natal chart. So the fourth house is the house that represents your home and family life. And so if you have Saturn placed here in the fourth house, then you may feel insecure in your home environment. Your home life could be very cold, or your family may be cold. You may not feel nourished on an emotional level and nurtured on a family level, and you may not feel loved and understood from your family. You may feel like your family may be emotionally removed from you, or you may not feel emotionally close with your family. And so maybe people in your family were too focused on fighting for survival and fighting for their own lives and concerned about the money or the breadwinning or whatever it was, that they didn't really take time and get to know you on an emotional level and connect with you on that deep level of feeling. So, you may feel those senses of not feeling nurtured in the way that you want to. And so your parents may also be very strict because Saturn represents a strict teacher, represents authority figures. So your parents may have been more authoritative and maybe more controlling or demanding. That could be a possibility here. You may have a challenging relationship with your father because Saturn represents, fatherly relationships. So there may be, your father may have been demanding or judgmental or emotionally removed from you, emotionally cut off and detached, and you didn't feel that warm, nurturing love from your father that you wish to have. So you may have to take care of your parents in some way. You may have to, be the adult really very quickly and easily in your life when it comes to your family. And you may have to take on a lot of family responsibilities. Um, and so You may also have a lower level of financial resources growing up, in terms of not a whole lot of material possessions in your life, or your family may be more on the poorer side when it comes to the financial spectrum of life. Um, and so Saturn in the fourth house represents a strong karmic bond that you have to the more nurturing parent, or to the more mothering one. There's definitely some karma that has to be worked out here when it comes to that parent. And so this karma must be addressed and worked out. And matters of the past, when it comes to your family, um, must be resolved. Um, and so it may be very difficult to establish a family when it comes to displacement. There could be also some challenges with creating a loving sanctuary, and a loving and warm and happy and joyful space in your life. Creating this kind of family that is very nurturing and is very loving and safe as a safe haven may be more challenging for you. But this is something that you're going to have to put a lot of hard work in to achieve. And we put hard work into the things that we value, into the things that we feel we signed up in this life to do as part of our purpose as a soul, living in this body through a human experience. And so we feel like this matters to us, like it's important. And so we put in a lot of hard work to achieve what we feel truly matters to us. Um, and so this could also represent looking too much into the past, looking too much in the ghost lands of the past, too much into this nostalgia of the past. But it's really, really wise for you when you can focus on the present moment and what you can do right here, right now. Um, and so there may be limitations and blockages that you may feel in your family unit. Um, you may experience poverty and other restrictions, especially as you get to be older. And so you can really thrive when you're working in careers such as real estate, working with homes or land or agriculture. You may collect old things and store them away, put them in boxes, and you like to collect a lot of old things. Or gathering up those kind of treasures. Um, and so you may want to stay in the same house forever, because Cancer wants emotional stability and security. So Cancer corresponds to the fourth house. And so it rules over home and family, and fourth house matters. So all houses have a corresponding sign to them. And so Cancer wants things to stay the same. It's very much like Taurus, which is an energy that wants to keep things status quo, wants to keep things the way that things have always been. And so Cancer wants that, security and um, a rock of reliability and dependability in the home environment. And so that may be the case for this. See, your beliefs may be rigid, so you may want to watch for imposing your view onto others. And you may feel like any family problem is your responsibility. And you may take on a lot of family burdens that you may feel very responsible for your family. You may feel a very strong sense of duty for your family, towards your family. And so you may also be self-critical about not doing enough for your family, whatever it may be. So, my advice here is to loosen up and to love and accept yourself for who you are, and to surrender to what is and to be present with your life. And so you may be afraid of losing your home or losing your family. That may be a huge fear and place of insecurity here. And so you may also live in an old house because Saturn represents old things. So you may live or want to live in an old house. So creating a strong, solid family foundation is key here. So your views on things may be very traditional. Um, you may be also very reserved and private about your life as well. So emotional stability and security are very important things for you to develop in this life when it comes to your family and home life. You may be risk averse or unafraid of taking risks and moving in those directions where you take solid, strong actions towards what you desire. You may want safety and security, and so there may be a fear here of taking risks. And because you may have not got the nurturing from when you were growing up and going through your childhood, the real talent here is when you can turn in on yourself and give yourself the love and the nurturing that you truly deserve, where you can take care of yourself and love yourself in the way that you would want somebody else to love and nurture you. And you're sort of going in on yourself and treating yourself the way that you want to be treated. So when you can't find the nurturing from the external world, you can give that nurturing to yourself. And that is something that you really want to consider doing in this life is how can I, what can I do to love and take care of myself? That's the question. Now, if we were to take a look at the fifth house of Saturn. So we're going to now take a look at what does the planet of discipline and structure mean in the fifth house. Saturn is the lord of karma and all about the hard work that we need to learn and the lessons that we need to learn in this lifetime. What I meant when I said earlier is the hard work that we need to do. And through that hard work, we learn invaluable lessons from Saturn. So if Saturn is in the fifth house, then it's so interesting because the hard work that has to be done through this placement is really about having fun and enjoying life. Because there may be a lot of delays and restrictions and limitations upon, first of all, your love life. So your romantic life, when it comes to dating people, when it comes to getting to know people and initiating relationships that may be put on hold for you. What also may be part of it is creative self-expression. So, what this could be is your sense of playfulness and also your creative self-expression with whatever you do creatively. What is it that you do creatively? Is it painting? Is it writing? Is it storytelling? Is it cooking? Whatever it is, this life is ultimately about coming into alignment with that and working with that and getting good and getting comfortable with expressing yourself in creative ways, in ways that you personally feel are creative and doing the things that are joyful and give you pleasure. And it's about doing the things that bring you inspiration. That's what it comes down to. So, there could be some limitations when it comes to your relationships with children because part of that fifth house represents children. And so it also is about learning to be more spontaneous, more freeing, more, going with the flow. and doing something out of a whim of inspiration because you feel like you want to express yourself, because you feel like you want to do whatever you feel inspired to do. And it's not about shutting down that inspiration. It's not about shutting down the part of yourself that is your inner child. It's about waking it up. It's about turning up the volume. It's about moving in a direction where you feel like you are making decisions based off of what your heart is calling you to do, based off of your inspirations. So that's what it all gets boiled down into when it comes to the stew of your life. So, having fun is really going to be the focus. And you might be so focused on your work, on the things that you have to get done on a day-to-day practical level, that you forget about having fun, that you forget about the value of leisure activities and letting your hair down and doing the things that bring you joy. So, it's an interesting combination of, Saturn in the fifth house, because wherever Saturn is, there's restrictions and there's blockages wherever Saturn falls in your natal chart. And in this case, it deals with joy and fun. So this life for you really comes down to being who you are and not being afraid to take up the spotlight, not being afraid to shine your light. Because when you shine your light and when you are authentically yourself, you inspire other people to be authentically themselves. And then everyone can accept each other as they are, and everyone can take up as much space as they want to. And so that is something that can be something to work on is not being afraid to express yourself and be who you are. You may feel the need to control other people, but the thing is, it's about being yourself and being who you authentically are without feeling the need to control your environment or control other people. So tapping into your inner child is a huge part of the Saturn in the fifth house. And so you may feel guilt and shame about expressing yourself. You may feel like there's some message that you got where you can't express yourself. You can't be your authentic self. There's limitations to your self-expression. That's the kind of message that you may have gotten when you were a child, when you were young, and something that you may have in your consciousness that's so deeply rooted in there that you can't shake it off. And so when it comes to self-expression, when it comes to emotional or creative or artistic expression, you may feel uncomfortable with that because you may feel possibly envious of other people who can do that uninhibitedly, and you feel inhibited when it comes to expressing yourself creatively. And so it's about working through and shifting the guilt and the shame to be, I'm allowing myself to express myself. I'm allowing myself to take up as much space as I want to. And I love myself and I am worthy of enjoying the pleasures of life. I am worthy of enjoying and making the most of the present moment. I am worthy of really living the life that I want to live. These are the kind of affirmations that would be helpful to repeat like a rolling mantra over and over again. Because there may be this feeling of like, I can't express myself, or restriction and challenges when it comes to self-expression. But this life is about authentically expressing yourself. You may also be reserved and self-conscious as well when it comes to how you present yourself to the world, how you put yourself out there. That may be the case. Now, what could also be important is, maybe in your family, self-expression wasn't encouraged then, and it wasn't, maybe it wasn't as allowed, or maybe it wasn't as, um, maybe it was frowned upon, possibly. Um, and so maybe you feel the need to work all the time without allowing yourself to have fun. Maybe you feel like there has to be a regimentary, practical root cause for having fun before doing it. You can't just have fun just for the sake of it. There has to be a reason for it. There has to be a motivation. There has to be some kind of enigma, or I made that word up. I don't even know what I'm saying. But there has to be a reason for your having fun that has to be practical and rational. But guess what? There doesn't have to be. And so having fun for the sake of having fun because you want to is really something that you can tap into in this life. So, maybe it could be engaging in art, taking up art classes, and taking up art as a means of self-expression, as a means of expressing who you are authentically and in a real and raw way. You're looking at other people's art and you're seeing their self-expression, and then you are creating your own art and seeing and taking a glimpse at your own self-expression. It's sort of a balancing act between looking at other people's art and then also you doing your own art and expressing yourself with your creative fabrics or shades or designs. And so it's really about giving the world what you have to offer and not being afraid to do so. And so as you grow and mature, you will become more open and more willing, and it'll be easier for you to express yourself creatively and authentically. And it will feel very meaningful for you and very fulfilling. Um, and so this can be also doing what you enjoy doing um, is important in this life. So there may also be delays when it comes to dating and romance. You may delay the dating and romance game later in your life, possibly. And you may also feel a lack of self-worth, a lack of feeling like you're not attracted enough, you're not lovable enough, you're not charming enough, you're not enough, basically. There is this message that you have, where you feel like you're not enough. It's this repeated mantra over and over in your head. It's this inner critic, this ego mind running the show where you feel like you're not attractive enough. You feel like you're not worthy enough of enjoying what you want to in your life and dating and doing all those things, but you really are enough. And when you can remember and when you can remind yourself that you are enough, and that you are worthy, then you can really do a lot of good for yourself. It's very helpful to have healthy mental messages that you're repeating to yourself where you are worthy and you are enough. Um, and so there could be some overall anxiety about dating. So you may feel more serious about dating. You may be more serious about dating, maybe more cautious when it comes to the people that you're meeting to make sure that they are absolutely right for you, that they are the right person for you, that they will do right for you. And so you may be overall more cautious when it comes to dating and romance as a life area. Um, and so your partner might be older than you because Saturn represents old age. It represents people that are older or more authoritative. So you may get into a relationship or you may date somebody that may be older than you. And so the more carefree and spontaneous you can be, the more attractive you can be. It's a sort of game where you can learn to relax and have fun and loosen up. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Lighten up and enjoy life and make the most of the moment, and then you will find more of the blessings coming into your life. Then you will find more opportunities open up to you where you can then date people. You can find a lot of meaningful relationships in your life because you loosened up, because you learn to play and have fun. And playing and having fun does not come the most natural to you, and it requires a lot of hard work to just loosen up. And so when you can do that, then people will admire the qualities of you loosening up, you being in the moment, you having fun. And so new relationship blessings will come into your life, and new opportunities will then come into your life in that regard. So, you may have very clear and strong beliefs concerning love and concerning who you want to date. There may also be, because the fifth house rules children, delay in having a child, or you may give birth on the later side. You may not have kids even though you want to, or you may have less children than you expected. That could be another possibility here. Now, you may be a more strict and mature parent to your children, and your children will become very mature very quickly, very responsible, very disciplined, very hardworking. They have a hard work ethic, very committed to produce and to do something that results in excellence. And so, you may be more strict if you want to be a parent, having higher expectations and clear expectations for your child. You may be very, well, not necessarily demanding and judgmental, but you may expect them to be a certain way and follow certain rules that a strict parent would want their child fulfilling. And so focusing on your creative pursuits really is the direction that you want to go in. And so you may be also self-critical of your work. You may have high expectations for yourself, or you may feel like going back to that not enoughness. You may feel like your work and what you do and all that you have to do is not enough when it is. Um, and so, you're also great at being a problem solver, finding solutions to things, being very inventive and innovative when it comes to problem solving. You can be very ambitious with your goals and aspirations that you want to achieve in the world. Um, that can be another possibility. And so it may also be difficult to open up emotionally. It may be difficult to emotionally express yourself because you may have got a message early on that emotionally or creatively are expressing yourself is discouraged here. And so you may feel more reserved or insecure or fearful or aloof when it comes to expressing yourself on an emotional level and being vulnerable on that level. So, you know, it's really about swallowing, your pride and your need to, keep it together and do all of that and hold everything in and, loosen up and express yourself. That's really, the advice that I have to give you. So you may also be risk averse towards taking opportunities and taking advantage of opportunities and taking action toward, whatever you want to take action towards. So, yeah, so being risk averse. You may also be impulsive or jump into something without thinking about it. You may lack patience for, waiting for the results to be whatever they be. whatever they will be, and patiently and in a slow and steady way achieving your goals. And so you may also be devoted and loyal to those you love as well, which can be a beautiful quality about the Saturn in the fifth house, because the fifth house corresponds to Leo, and Leos are very devoted to those they love, very caring and very loyal in their relationships. They're very generous and loving people, as as a sign, Leo, as a sign. And so that's a beautiful thing about this placement. And so you may also demand a lot of respect from the outer world, but it's about you giving that back as well. And so you may also be very dutiful in your relationships. And relationships are a duty, and you want to give in any way that you can, really. And so, yeah. So this life is about nurturing and nourishing your creative talents and abilities. So that was all that I have to say on Saturn in the fifth house. I've beaten it to death. Now let's move on to Saturn in the sixth house. Now, Saturn in the sixth house is a very comfortable position because the sixth house corresponds to the sign of Virgo. Saturn rules Capricorn, and Virgo is a fellow earth sign. So the themes of the sixth house, work, health, daily routines, co-workers, keeping up your physical body. All of these themes play really, really well into Saturnian structure and discipline and all of these kind of things, which I'm going to be getting into. So the two really bond well with each other. And so Saturn in the sixth house is going to really represent a lot of the themes of Saturn. So people with Saturn in the sixth house are very hardworking. They're very ambitious. Their work ethic is really, really high. Once they set their minds on a task, they're going to achieve that task and do the task in an efficient way where they're being productive and they're being useful. And they're very industrious people. They work long hours. They put in so much time and energy and effort to what they do, and they may work harder than other people, other Saturn house groups, but they work long hours. So they feel a strong sense of duty to whatever they're doing. And they're very dedicated and they're very loyal and devoted towards their job, towards their profession in life. Because the sixth house represents your job versus the 10th house, which is your career. So those are two different things. Um, and so the sixth house really delves more into the details of things as opposed to the 10th house in astrology. So they feel a sense of duty to whatever they're doing. There is a need to be of service here. There's a need to be of service. Um, and so they can be very diligent when it comes to their work. They can be, people with displacement are very structured and they're very organized. They really like structured organization. They really like to keep things in order and they really like a routine. They need a routine. If you have this placement, you have got to have a routine that you're sticking to. And so, they'll get the work done no matter what. If they slightly like the job, they're going to be committed to it, and they're very open and flexible towards the work that they're doing, and they're going to get it done with excellence and with a detail-oriented focus. So, maybe the success and the fruits of your labor comes to you later in your life. So that may be, the possibility where the success that you have comes later in your life as a result of all your hard work, of all the time and the energy and effort that you're putting into it, as I said before. It may not come immediately, but it may come later on. So a slow and steady process towards what you want is really the life path for you. So it can be slowly and steadily working and putting in those long hours into the work one step at a time, and then you earn the results from it, and you earn the rewards that Saturn has to give. Because when it comes to Saturn, you earn things. Um, Saturn is about earned effort. And so, a lot of your material success can be found later on in life. Another aspect of this is not fully valuing and not fully appreciating yourself, your talents, gifts, and abilities, and your work ethic. You are enough. The desire that you have to work hard and serve and really care about your work um, is enough. You have done enough and that you are enough. So when you can love and value yourself and see the full worth of yourself or what you're doing, the better it will be. The better life will be for you when you can accept and love yourself for who you truly are. Um, regardless of what you didn't do, regardless of your flaws, you know, yeah, so that's what it comes down to. So in this life, you have karma to pay off through a lot of hard work, because Saturn is the planet of karma. And so that may be a huge theme with this placement. You may want to be in a career that is very service oriented, like being in healthcare, for example. So any service oriented career where you're providing a service to somebody else, where you're helping somebody else, and you're improving somebody else's life, and you're that kind of thing can be very nurturing and very good and positive and meaningful for you to do. So you can work hard in whatever field you choose. So you can also be a very helpful person, especially to your coworkers, because you want everyone to be on the same page, be able to do their work, and you're very willing to help people, which is a very nice quality of someone with the Saturn in the sixth house. You want to be of use and of service to others. And so you may be very concerned with the world's problems, and you may want to make a difference in the world. How can I serve? How can I make a difference and help the world? Um, and so when it comes to your daily routines, you may be very rigid when it comes to those. You may not like to change them. And once something gets added to the routine, it may very well stay there. You don't like to change your daily routines. And you may, you like that repetition. You need that repetition of the schedule and the predictability and the familiarity and the comfort and the security that you get from your daily routines. So you don't quit a job unless you absolutely have to. So you're committed to and dedicated to whatever work that you're doing. And so you feel like things must go to plan. And you love to plan things out and you really like to um, it can be difficult for you when things don't go to plan, but it's ultimately about trusting the divine plan, trusting the universe's plan that everything will unfold as it should. And when you can surrender your plans sometimes and allow the universe to take hold of it and allow the universe to work through you and take control of your life in the direction that you're going in, then you will find a lot of peace inside yourself. Sometimes when you need to just let go and let God and trust that the divine plan is better than what your wildest imagination could think about as your plan. But in general, you really like to plan out, your life. You really like to think ahead and plan ahead. So you're also very objective, rational, and logical when it comes to making decisions, which is another good thing. Um, so you may also be very rigid to what you want and how you want it done. When you can allow advice from others, when you can allow for spontaneity and new things to come into your life, when you can allow for things to not be exactly the way that you want them to be, but trusting that it's fine, trusting that it'll work out well, and that it will get you the results that you need is going to be a huge thing for you. Is letting go of your rigid need to have things done in a certain way. Um, and so your health also, because that's another sixth house matters, your health, it must be a priority in your life, on a mental, emotional, and physical level. Um, so, you may be susceptible to things like chronic illnesses, and you may feel pain also in your bones and knees, since those are very Saturnian, Capricornian body parts. So there may be some pain and there may be some serious maintenance that has to be done with those body parts. And so you may also have dry skin, be prone to dry skin, digestive issues, or food allergies. Um, and so, being disciplined when it comes to your health is something that you really want to keep in mind. So establishing healthy habits, walking out in nature, meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi, exercise, running, whatever it is, establishing a healthy routine and healthy habits and healthy activities that you are surrounding your life with. Because the sixth house is the natural house of Virgo, and it represents the little details that make up your life that define who you are. The other final piece that I want to lay in here is worrying about the future. You may worry and you may, again, it goes back to planning out your future because of those worries that you have. And so when you can surrender and allow the universe to take control sometimes with you co-creating your reality and doing your due diligence, doing your work in a disciplined way, and allowing the universe to also, be your guide. When you can do this, then you will find a lot of peace and um, you'll feel like your life is moving in the direction that you want it to go in. What about challenges and obstacles in your relationships? Well, that's what Saturn in the seventh house is all about. If you have this placement, then welcome to this portion of the video. If you skipped all the way here, or if you watched the whole thing up to this point, then welcome. So, what does Saturn in the seventh house indicate? Wherever Saturn goes, it provides challenges and blockages and limitations. And the seventh house is relationships, not just any relationship, committed long-term marriages or business partnerships. The seventh house also corresponds to legal matters and the justice system. So, all that to say is that you want your relationships to be long term if you have Saturn in the seventh house. So your relationships are long term because Saturn represents what am I doing and what is the hard work that I'm putting into this thing so that it has long term results. Um, my famous example for this is when you're building a building, you're building it for, a very long period of time, not just to be up a couple days or a week or something like that. So, Saturn in my mind deals with construction of buildings. Um, but so you want long-term relationships, that's the first thing. And so you may be very serious when it comes to partnerships. You may be very concerned with helping the other person, being there for them, supporting them, and you want to be responsible in partnerships. You want to be very on yourself. Well, not necessarily that, but very, very clear on what you want and on your desires and on your intentions for the specific relationship that you're in so that you can act in a very mature and dependable way. So this has to do with long-term commitments. And it deals with relationship stability because there's a deep need with Saturn in the seventh house to experience stability in their relationships, to experience a relationship where they can count on the other person and the other person can count on them to be there for them, to be loyal and devoted to them. Um, and so they want to give and get back the same in return for what they give in relationships. So maturity in relationships is a really, really strong theme. And so there is a strong sense of duty and dedication toward their partners and their relationships. Um, they may also have challenges in their relationships. They may experience low self-esteem, thinking that they're not, worthy enough of being in a relationship, thinking that whatever that they do, it's not going to be enough for the relationship that they want. There is this belief that is ingrained in the psyche of people with this placement that, that it's not going to be the right relationship, that it's not going to be a dependable one. Or, for whatever reason, that they may be against the idea of relationships when it comes to marriage and things like that. So there may be some low self-esteem in that area. There may be some restrictions to finding your partner um, and keeping up the relationship. There may be some delays in partnerships. You might get married later on in life. That may be a huge possibility here. You may find the perfect partner later in life, or the perfect people open up to you later in life because Saturn deals with the long haul, the slow burn. So in time, you mature and things open up to you when you put the hard work in. And Saturn is the planet of time. So um, things unfold um, in time. And you're not meant to be in a relationship unless it is at the exact time that you need to be in this relationship, that your soul is signed up in this life saying, okay, at this point in time, I'm going to be in this relationship with this person. It's right on time. So there is also a fear of being alone and being abandoned. If you have this placement of not wanting to be separate, of wanting to be together with a partner. There may also be some trust issues. So you may take trust in a more cautious way. Be very cautious with the people that you trust, and where you place your trust. That may be another big theme here. And so your trust has probably been broken previously. That's why there is these trust issues that you may have with other people, that they cannot be trustworthy enough to you, that they can't be enough of who you would like them to be. And so the trust needs to be earned throughout time. And when you get to know the person better, then you'll develop a greater trust with them. And so we need to get past these trust issues that we have with others. So, you may be more cautious when it comes to trusting another person. That may be something that is a very huge part of somebody with the Saturn in the seventh house. So there may also be a fear of intimacy and vulnerability, of getting deep and close with that person and expressing your emotions, opening up emotionally with that partner. There may be some restrictions with that because maybe in childhood you were, there was some conditioning where you couldn't be vulnerable or you couldn't be emotionally open with the people in your world, necessarily speaking. That is one possibility. It's not to say that that is exactly how it is. Um, and you can apply that to varying degrees in your own life. So, if you have this placement, you're very responsible and mature in your partnerships. And so you could do whatever it takes to keep the relationship lasting, for as long as you want it to last. And so relationships are where the hard lessons are. Relationships are where the things that you need to learn are, especially being that they are karmic lessons. Um, and so opening up to others emotionally isn't the easiest for you, as I've said before. So that may take more time and more work. It may not come naturally. You may find that you're more shy and reserved, and that there's a wall that you put up with others just naturally, just instinctively, not even consciously thinking about it, but there is that reserved wall up between you connecting with another person. Um, and so, um, again, opening up may not be the easiest. So, you may also miss opportunities in your life relationship because of the fear and insecurity you have of it's not going to be the right relationship. It's not going to be the most dependable, most stable relationship. So you may miss those opportunities, because of fears and insecurities concerning relationships. Um, and so your relationships, again, may be the right ones that come later on in life. Your partner may be older than you because Saturn represents old age. So that may be a possibility here. And so you may be very shy when young. You're possibly um not the most open and not the most emotionally vulnerable when you're young and not the most expressive on the verbal level when you're young. And so this may stem from a parental relationship, that the relationship is shallow, cold, detached, not the most emotionally open. And it may be that you become shy because of that parent. Maybe it could be the same sex as you, um, being shy or more reserved, and so you may inherit that and possess those qualities. Now, this is certainly relatable because my relationship with my dad is more of a detached relationship. As close as we are, we live in the same house and all of that, but we're not the most emotionally open. And I wish that our relationship was more emotionally nurturing and close. But and my dad is a shyer person. And so I think there's something, in your DNA when it comes to same-sex parents to reject what the same-sex parent is like and does. And so I personally want to be more expressive and open and, less inhibited, I want to say, less shy, than the version of my dad that I perceive him to be. So that is my truth right there. So, um, there may be some limitations that you experience in relationship. This could be business relationships, or romantic relationships. So you admire people with serious plans for their future. You also make a very dependable and protective friend because the seventh house is relationships and it can also extend into friendships. However, that's more of an 11th house matter. But as a friend, you're very good to depend on. You're very loyal. You're very caring and somebody that others can count on. And so your friends may be smaller. You may have a smaller circle of friends as opposed to a bigger circle with more shallow relationships. You may have few people that are friends in your life, but you have deeper relationships with. And friendships that you form are usually going to be long-term, long-lasting friendships. And so you may meet your friends via work, or in the business arena of life. And so you're also very open to compromises, to compromise and constructive criticism. But going back to the idea of compromise, it's this win-win solution where you take what one person wants and the other person wants, and you combine it together and you form something that both can agree upon. Um, and so that's something that you're open to. And so you may also be very practical about marriages and relationships, very pragmatic about those things. You may be more traditional or conservative when it comes to relationships. And so maybe your marriages are colder and less emotionally nourishing than you would want, because Saturn is a cold planet. It's the cold energy. It's the detached energy. It's where we have some work to do. It's the cultivation when it comes to opening ourselves up to the other person. And so Saturn, while it's about building foundations and building structures, it's not necessarily very emotionally open. Um, and so that may be um, the case with some of your marriages that you get involved in. And so it's important not to stay in a relationship that doesn't serve you. So idolization, there could be some idolization of the partner because you depend upon them for security needs and as a rock of reliability. And so it's important not to over idolize the relationship just because you need the stability, and the, familiarity of the relationship. And so if the relationship isn't working out for you and it isn't right for you, you have the right to leave that relationship. And I would definitely do that as somebody who has Saturn in the seventh house natally. And so you may be more focused on financial security when it comes to relationship and other such matters. And so it's okay for relationships to take time because the best things take time. Wine takes time to age and, mature. And so, um, what may be happening is that, the perfect relationship might not be instant, or there may be delayed gratification when it comes to that, and that's okay as long as you're waiting it out for the right relationship. But at the same time, taking advantage of relationship opportunities. And the other thing is just to relax and have fun in your relationships and loosen up and stop taking them so seriously. The final thing here, the final note that I want to leave you on is balancing giving and taking. Where are you giving too much and not receiving enough, or where are you not giving enough? So the best relationships have a healthy give and take dynamic. Now let's discuss Saturn in the eighth house. So if you have Saturn in the house of death, sex, rebirth, and joint financial resources, then there may be some blockages and restrictions in these areas. There may be blockages in intimate relationships. You may not be able to sexually connect with your partners. You may not have the intimacy and the sexual contact and relationship that you would want because the eighth house is the house of sexuality. And it's not something that gets spoken about at the dinner table, but I'm going to bring it up here because this is something that should be taken into account when discussing any eighth house planet, especially Venus or the moon there, because those are the relationship planets. Um, and so there may be a fear of being emotionally open and vulnerable, and there may be a fear of feeling your emotions and how deep that they can be. But when you lean into the emotions, when you sit with them, when you're present with them, when you can let them write away your life and your experience, then you can find a lot of growth and fulfillment in that regard. Because you may restrict and not allow yourself to go through and feel those emotions, or it may be hard to feel those feelings, but it's about leaning into them and feeling them, and also being vulnerably and emotionally open with the partner, with the other, with the relationship that you're in, because that's a huge point of power is when you can open up to the other emotionally and be emotionally open. So there may be also a lack of committed relationships here, whatever that may mean. So partners may not be able to connect on a deeper level. You might struggle with connecting on an intimate level, but it's something that you truly want in your life. If it's something that you want, then that may require a lot of hard work. Um, and so you may also be reserved when it comes to opening up emotionally. That may be the case through loss through others. That's also a huge part of this. There may also be delayed inheritance. You might not get the money that you're asking for, or there may be some delays and restrictions when it comes to joint resources. You might get the money later, or you might get the inheritance later. There's just in general, it's restrictions when it comes to getting money from others because it's the eighth house of inheritance. Um, and so you may also live a long life because Saturn is the planet of longevity and the eighth house is the house of death. So that may be something that may be true when it comes to this placement or natal position. So you may experience Saturnian themes on an unconscious level, and you may not be aware of your fears. So this comes down to facing the shadows um, and facing those parts of yourself, those shadowy aspects of yourself that have not been brought into conscious awareness yet. And when you can unveil them and put them into the light of awareness, and when you can face and integrate those parts of yourself that you're ashamed of, that you want to disown, that you want to have nothing to do with, that you continue squashing down because you don't want those to be a part of your reality, that is not the best thing for you to do. What is best for you to do is to, again, feel those feelings and face those shadows. And so being open to transformation, transforming, changing who you are, shedding layers of old skin, and becoming a true phoenix that rises from the ashes is going to be very healthy for you. And so, changing who you are from who you were before to then the person that you are becoming is a huge thing with this here. So, it's not only important to feel your feelings, but expressing them in healthy ways. It's also important to be open to letting go of what doesn't work for you anymore. Um, and this may be a huge theme in your life of the process of death, rebirth, transformation, of letting go what doesn't serve you in your life to make space for something new and new things. So being open to growth is really important here. And so any planet in the eighth house usually presents themselves at a time of crisis, at a time of chaos and conflict, not necessarily when things are hunky-dory or mundane or going in an everyday fashion. This is an intensely emotional placement if you have Saturn in the eighth house. And so there may be a talent that you may have with sitting others in their pain and really being there for them and listening and holding space for them and understanding emotionally and intellectually what they're going through. And so being a psychotherapist or psychologist or therapist may be very healing for you because that job requires you to listen to others and to understand others at a very deep and emotionally vulnerable level where they're basically giving you their truth and giving you their real and raw self. And so that may be very healing to sit with them and to hear their story and to be with them in their pain and in their grief and sorrow or whatever emotion that they may be feeling. So connecting with other people and understanding human nature and others on a deep level may be very gratifying for you. Seeing into somebody's soul may be another aspect of this. So tuning into somebody else's psychology, of how they think and also their motivations and intentions, why they do what they do, and what are the reasons behind it. So tuning into that is super important. You may be the one who takes care of the money aspect of relationships or marriage. Um, and so you may also have a talent for healing other people, for nurturing them and soothing them. And there may also be talents that you may have with dealing with other people's money. So being a banker or you know, somebody like that would be very gratifying for you. And so again, this life is about tapping into the death or birth cycle. And so you may be very serious when it comes to matters of the unknown, of the occult, and other people's money. And you may also be unwilling to share your resources. That may be a case as well with this because Saturn represents areas of fear. But when you can be open to letting things go and letting energy flow from one source to another and sharing your resources, that may be very healing for you. And so there may be challenges when it comes to joint finances and taxes and your relationships with those areas of life. And there may also be a talent when it comes to getting to the root of something, getting to the root core of something, getting to the root of what may be mysterious in this life. So delving into the deeper matters of life and really finding the true reason why something is the way it is. So cracking codes or investigation may be something that you may want to consider as a career. Being an investigator may be an option for you. So you may have an interest in what is hidden and what is occult. And so understanding the deeper aspects of life, maybe the darker aspects of life, is going to be important for you. You may be drawn to subjects like metaphysics and astrology. You may also have a strong intuition because the eighth house is one of the more karmic spiritual houses. And so your intuition, your inner guiding compass may be super strong if you have this placement. You may also be very analytical and intelligent if you have this placement. And so you want to speak truth. You want to cut right to the truth of something, not beating around the bush. You want to get to the absolute truth of something and speak to what is true and find what is real and raw. That's what this placement ultimately comes down to, is investigation into the deeper, darker aspects of life. Now we're going to take a look at the meaning of Saturn in the ninth house. So if you have Saturn in the ninth house, this is an area of life that you have to put the work in for. So you're very practically minded if you have Saturn in the ninth house, because the ninth house deals with higher thought and higher wisdom, higher education, and things of that nature. So um, you have very rational, logical thought processes, and you have practical beliefs. You may be closed to new ideas that may be somewhat of a challenge for this particular placement. Is not the most open to new ideas and new ways of living and new perspectives and things like that. So being open to new ideas is super important and to new perspectives of how people live in the world, of different religions, different ideas, new information, new beliefs, new perspectives, all these kind of things. So being open to new information is really going to be a huge thing to remember as you're living your life. So, this placement really comes down to thinking and acting on your ideas and philosophies, leading your life based off of the philosophy that you have of it, um, and your beliefs on life. You may need more time to process information and find perspectives through the information. So you're receiving information and it takes time to digest for you to process it and form your own opinion and your own perspectives on it. So it's about connecting the information to yourself. You may have thoughts and beliefs that are very structured, also very rigid and very organized. And you may have structured views of the world. You may be very bright and intelligent. Um, and the ninth house is higher education. So you may be a hardworking student when it comes to that arena of life. You may be very diligent and efficient when it comes to getting the work done and all those kind of things like that. And so you may have restrictions when it comes to your personal philosophy. So when it comes to you finding your own beliefs and your own philosophy, you may have not been allowed to really have your true philosophy and your personal outlook on life when you were growing up. Maybe it was the case that you were in a society or in a family that didn't put the prize on the child that had the strongest beliefs and the strongest philosophies. So, discovering who you are and the self-discovery process of developing your truth and your your philosophical outlook on life and whatever that outlook may be is going to be sort of what you need to work hard at, about defining your truth, defining what your personal philosophy is. So there may also be a fear that you have of getting laughed at, of getting, made fun of in some regard, of getting ridiculed because of certain ideas and philosophies that you want to say, and you're afraid of it because of the fear of not being taken seriously or being insulted or something like that for speaking your truth. So you could work as a teacher or a lawyer, um, and you could either follow a religious path, follow a religion that you're very devoted to, or you could define your own religious beliefs and live via your own religious rules that really define your truth. So, egg boxes. Um, and so you may have been raised in a religious family, with very strong religious beliefs, and maybe you inherited some projection of your family's religious beliefs, or you became very, ingrained in that family with those beliefs, that those become a part of you, but it's about questioning, what is my truth? Do these religious beliefs align with what is true for me on a spiritual level? So your morals could be very strict, strong, and conservative. And so you follow a strong moral code where you define the rules of how you live your life. And this moral code could also be strict. And so there seems to be a need for reliable evidence. Um, because in order for something to make sense, there has to be the evidence. At least that's what you're feeling. And so for something to really click, there has to be proof to that. And it may take time because Saturn is about time. It's about things that take a long process to achieve. But in the end, the results of it are long lasting. And so it may take time to learn how to really broaden your horizons. And so you may be afraid to open up to different viewpoints if you have this placement. So, afraid of foreign things, afraid of foreign cultures, of foreign languages, or new things. But it's about getting past these fears and going out into the world and exploring the world and opening up to these different perspectives and beliefs and seeing the diversity of from one country to the next, from one place to the next. And so, um, there may also be a resistance that you may feel towards change. And so you may have an interest in foreign cultures and languages because Saturn is where we want to put the discipline and the work into whatever area of life that is, whatever matters of the house life area that it is. So there may be more of an interest in these things. And so you may travel more in the second part of your life as opposed to the first part of your life. And in terms of travel, you're not necessarily a spontaneous traveler. You're more of a planned out traveler. You like to have a structure, a plan of where we're going to go at this time, and all these kind of things like that. There may be restrictions when it comes to going into, university or higher education. You may end up, the education could be delayed. You may end up going back there later on in life. So Saturn represents restriction, and that's that life area that corresponds to the ninth house. And so, um, you may have a career actually as a professor or a teacher. And because Saturn is strict but fair, you may embody these qualities because Saturn demands that you live up to your full potential. It demands that you put the work in and pursue excellence. And so you would demand that from your students that they put their hardest work into something that they're doing and they really mean what they're doing and they care about it and that they are doing the best that they can possibly can with whatever assignment it may be that you would assign. And so you may have been afraid of your teachers or authority figures as a child or growing up as well. You could also make an organized researcher. And so another part of the Saturn in the ninth house placement is about connecting to the divine, connecting to your higher self, connecting to a higher power, because the ninth house is your spiritual and religious truth, your spiritual truth ultimately. And so connection to something way beyond yourself that's bigger than yourself is transcendence. And it could be a ninth house matter. And so this life is about a quest of spiritual truth, of you discovering yourself through travel, through adventure, of discovering who you are and expanding who you are, um, and asking big questions, and then going out into the world and seeking those big answers. Now, if you have Saturn in the 10th house, then you were born with Saturn. You were born with Saturn in its home sign, in its home house, because Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn corresponds to the 10th house. So if you have this placement, then you're very self-disciplined, very hardworking, and very ambitious when it comes to your career. So the 10th house is career. The 6th house is your job, your day-to-day job, but the 10th house is your career. So you're also very determined and persistent in this regard. There's a sense of duty and responsibility that you feel towards your career. You may be well known and respected by the people around you in your community. And there may be some challenges and blockages when it comes to your career. You may find your career later on in life, or it may be harder to define what is your career and work hard to achieve a place where you can have the career that you want to. So this life is about climbing the ladder of success. Not that it's easy or fast or breezy or light or whatever it may be, but that it takes a lot of hard work. And it takes a lot of time and effort. And it takes patience and it takes discipline that leads to your success. So you may also have high standards for your career, high standards for your work, and what you want to achieve. And so you're great at taking responsibility for yourself and your life, great at taking responsibility for working for the life that you want and what you desire in your life. So you're also very realistic if you have this placement. You want a stable career and professional life because stability and a career that is lasting for the long term is important to you. And your professional life is of value to you as well. And so you may not stop working or you may not take a break until the work is done. You may start something and finish it. and sacrifice your own emotional needs, what nourishes you, all these things just to get the goal achieved and get the work done. So you could be a workaholic. So learning to take a break every now and then is not a bad idea at all for you. Because overworking causes burnout and physical and mental exhaustion, and it may be detrimental to you. And so, another thing here is learning about delayed gratification. The hard work that you put into something eventually leading to success, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience and effort. And it falls under the category of delayed gratification. So you may also be very controlling if you have this placement. And so your success could be achieved later in life as opposed to earlier in life. You may also struggle from time to time with self-confidence. So working on your self-confidence is going to be of value to you as well. So you may want to work in professions that require hard work and working long hours. You may work for the government, or you may also do well in a career in science and research. You could also make great managers. And so when it comes to authority, you want to be an authority or leader in your life. You want to take the lead, you want to take the reins and be in control of your life and of your fate and of your destiny, especially in a corporate industry. So you could be very fair and square, very strict, and lay down the rules as an authority figure. And so this life for you is about slowly and steadily working your way to success. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time, days, weeks, months, maybe even years to achieve the success that you desire. So you will learn about hard work and discipline in this life. So you may feel a lack of recognition for the hard work you do when young. It may not have been acknowledged or celebrated or praised, or you may not have gotten the compliments that you want to, or the attention put on what you have done in your life. So you may also have a strict parental figure in your life, mainly the father who taught Saturnian values about hard work and discipline and following the rules and obeying authority and having a structure to your life, etc. So you may have had disciplinarian upbringing. So your parents may have been cold or not emotionally available. Because that's the moon energy. That's very Cancerian energy because Cancer energy is about nourishing and nurturing on an emotional level and really sitting with you in your pain and whatever emotion you're feeling. It's about validating and noticing and allowing yourself to feel the feelings and being there for someone else to hold their hand and um, to give them a hug and all those kind of things like that. So your parents could have been not emotionally available. They may have built up the strong foundations for you in your life, but not necessarily, maybe have been there emotionally. Maybe they didn't take care of you the way that they should have taken care of you. And so you learn to be self-sufficient, self-reliant from a young age. You learn to parent yourself or parent or parents even. Take care of yourself. There may be struggles with authority figures. There may be conflicts and challenges with the authority figures in your life that you may have, taking control from you, limiting your control of your life, limiting what you want to do, what you can do, limiting your scope of vision for the life that you desire. And so there may also be a lack of trust in them. Maybe authority figures haven't been the most dependable or loyal or there for you when you need and want them. You may not like to be in the spotlight of your achievements that may feel very uncomfortable for you. You may have been shyer when young. And so you may, as a person, be on the side of being more cold, aloof, and reserved. So those are possibilities here because the 10th house is the Capricorn house, and Capricorn is one of the least emotionally expressive signs of the zodiac. And it is a colder energy at its shadow side. Um, and so you can possess these qualities of not being, the most open emotionally or most conversationally open. So you may feel a fear of failure as well. You may be perfectionistic when it comes to the work that you're doing, needing things to be exactly right. You may also be very independent if you have Saturn in the 10th house, wanting to do things your way. Things must be done your way. And, you know, your way or the highway. That's something that you strongly believe that it has to be done my way. When you can open up to other ways of doing things that can really, really benefit you. Of it's not about being so rigid in your own way of doing things, although you like to do things in your own way at the time that you want to do them in. So, you may have a strong business sense if you have this placement. That's all that I have to say about Saturn in the 10th house. Let's take a look at Saturn in the 11th house. So if you have this placement, first of all, welcome to this part of the video. I want to tell you, first of all, that you may often feel lonely in company, especially when you're younger, because there's this fear, there's this restriction holding you back with engaging with people, having conversations with them, getting to know them, getting to connect with them on an intellectual level. So there may be some challenges when it comes to making friends or maintaining friendships because Saturn represents where there is challenges and the 11th house is the house of all things friendship. There may be a heightened sense of responsibility when it comes to your friendships, or it could also be humanitarian efforts and efforts of the larger society. So, humanity as a whole, there may be a heightened sense of responsibility that you may feel, a heaviness, a weight, a feeling that you must work super hard to achieve these areas of life, and that you must put your duties in and show for these particular areas of life and these spectrums of life. So you may take your friendships more seriously, and you may have a smaller tribe of friends as opposed to um, a bigger group with more people. There may be more select, there may be a more select group of friends. And these group of friends you get to know on a deeper level, and the relationships are stable and they're long lasting, just like Saturn. And so there may be some struggles to form deep connections with other people. That may be part of this too. And so you may not be able to find like-minded people, or maybe you have struggles finding people who share similar interests and viewpoints as you do. Maybe you struggle finding people that can connect to you in the way that you want to have a connection with. And so there may be a difficult time connecting with large groups of people. You may socialize with people later in life. The socialization and the interactions with people, that kind of success can happen later on in life as opposed to the early part of life. Because Saturn is about the maturity and the evolution and growth of you through time. And as you get older, you open up to more people, you have more conversations, you have more interactions with people. It becomes easier to connect with people when you're older. You may feel lonely a lot of the time. You may also feel self-conscious when it comes to being in a group of people, um, or shy when it comes to your interactions with others. Shyness may play a big part in this particular placement. Maybe you were a shy child. It's hard to open up and connect and start conversations and involve yourself within group activities. And even as somebody who doesn't have this placement, I can relate to that. It can be hard to speak up and include yourself and assert yourself in group dynamics. So standing by the sidelines and allowing the group to go their own way will be more comfortable with somebody with displacement as opposed to participation and involvement within the group. There may be some low self-confidence when it comes to making friends here, and it may be stressful and tiresome to be around others. That may be part of this too. And so you may try to fit in really hard when young, but it may have been more difficult. You may prefer to stay in the background in large groups of people, as opposed to involving yourself, as opposed to being the center of attention. You may feel invisible or that you don't belong anywhere when it comes to group dynamics and when it comes to belonging someplace with other people. Um, and so developing healthy relationships with groups and in social circles is really what needs to be worked on. That's where you need to put the work in this life. And so there could possibly also be some delays when it comes to your dreams and aspirations because that's something that the 11th house rules over. So your talents may were perhaps suppressed when you were young. You weren't maybe allowed to express your talents or to go after your dreams or go after what you're desiring in your life. It may have been put down and it may have been put aside and not encouraged when you were younger. Maybe it was encouraged to not go after what you were looking for in your life, but to remain in the same house, in the same place, in the same position for all time. There may be challenges in your professional life, despite perhaps being efficient and trustworthy and very hardworking. So that could also play into this. And you may be very caring and loyal when it comes to friendship. As a friend, you're very caring and loyal, although it's very hard to open up to others. And it may be difficult for others to open up to you. It really all depends. And it may be hard to develop friendships, but as a friend, you're very dependable and loving and considerate. And so, learning to receive love, affection, and connection with another is really a huge life lesson for you as well. And so, your friends may be way older than you. So, when you're younger, you may have friends that are much older than you. And when you're older, you may have friends that are much younger than you. So connecting with your peers may not be your strong suit, and it may not be what you choose as your go-to friendships with people. And so you may often meet friends in a business environment. So your friendships may be stable and long-lasting as you mature. As you mature, you can develop these kinds of friendships. And so you may be drawn to people who are reliable, responsible, trustworthy, and hardworking. And so you may earn more material and financial success from your work, from your profession later in life, as opposed to earlier in your life, because Saturn represents delays. And the 11th house comes off of the 10th house, which is your career and profession. So you may earn a lot of success from this later on in life. You may also have a talent for turning dreams into reality, and taking a dream and taking a vision and taking an idea and manifesting it into physical form and achieving it in the physical world. So your focus is probably on long-term goals. And it's about working slowly and steadily to earn money, to earn financial success. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work and a lot of long hours and a lot of patience and dedication for you to move through life in a kind of steadfast manner. And so you may also have a fear of failure. You may be overly cautious and conservative when it comes to taking advantage of opportunities. Now, in terms of careers and things that you can do, volunteering and devoting your time and energy to something outside of yourself and helping humanity and helping other people, um, is a good thing for you, where you can be charitable and selfless when it comes to helping others. So you could succeed in careers of being a social media influencer, an activist. You could also thrive in a career in science or technology. And the final thing about this placement is that you can be humble when it comes to your success. You're not overly boastful about it and, self-centered about it. You could recognize your success and choose humility when it comes to this life area. So now, finally, we're going to look at Saturn in the 12th house. So if you have this placement, there may be a lot going on under the surface. You may feel lonely or apart from others in some way or another. And you may have a strong defense system when it comes to you versus other people. And there may be walls that you build up when it comes to receiving and allowing yourself to be emotionally open and expressive toward others. You may suppress your feelings if you have this placement. Um, and so it's important to lean into the feelings and be present with them and allow those feelings to move and shift within you. And so you may need time alone for reflection. That is a really, really huge must with Saturn in the 12th house, is time alone to reflect, to contemplate, to recharge and replenish your energy. You may be incredibly sensitive if you have this placement. And so you may want to hide from the world. So you may learn to hide your feelings from a young age. So expressing your feelings and being emotionally open may be something that was repressed and not encouraged when you were younger. And so it may be difficult to let people help you. It may be difficult to um, let them get to know who you are and what you're going through and what you're feeling. And so you may feel like a victim a lot of the time. Um, and so you may have a fair amount of melancholy experiences. So there may be um, feelings of sadness that you may experience, feelings of sorrow. And so you may long for what you haven't experienced in life at some points and times. It may be difficult to talk to others about your problems. It may be difficult to open up to others emotionally. It may be hard to let go and flow with life. You may be stuck in the past. So you may go back to the past and go back to the nostalgia of it, and you may be stuck in the past without realizing it. So being in the present, finding things that you can do that can make you present and connect you with the here and now, those things are really going to be important for you. So whether it's noticing what's going on in a room or walking or engaging with life as it is right now, finding ways to really be in the present moment is going to be very good for you. It may be difficult to forgive yourself if you have this placement. You may have trouble remembering your dreams. You may suffer from insomnia. It may be hard to access your imagination and your unconscious because Saturn is the planet of hardships and it represents challenges and difficulties. And these things may be very difficult for you to access. So connecting with your unconscious feelings and imagination may be difficult. You may experience a lot of nightmares. And so your fears may come from your dreams at night, where you dream and you see them playing out. So your father figure might have been distant from your life, not necessarily the most open and emotionally available, because Saturn represents cold relationships. It represents the father figure energy in your life. And so if you have this placement, you may not have been connected with your father in an emotionally nourishing way. And you may be an escapist from the world. You may want to escape the world, be it through video games, be it through a bunch of other things, but you may not want to connect with the world. You may have a job where you're isolated working in that job. You may work in a hospital or prison or as a researcher. And so, what you can do where you're putting selfless service into it, volunteering work, that can be another huge thing. So, helping those less fortunate than you, because Pisces, which corresponds to the 12th house, is very selfless and loving and empathetic and compassionate energy. And it really cares about the well-being of others in that way. So, you may beat yourself up for what occurred a long time ago, going back to being stuck in the past, not being here in the present moment. You may continually blame yourself for what you did in the past that you felt was wrong. So being in the present is going to be huge for you to remember and for you to apply to your life. You may also feel pain, but you may have trouble placing the pain, or recognizing or identifying um, the actual cause of the pain and the actual pain that you're experiencing. And so you may hide your pain away from others because Pisces represents all hidden things and hidden enemies. So you may hide your feelings from others, not wanting to be emotionally open with others. You may suffer from panic attacks or anxiety, or depression. That may be another thing. So seeing a psychotherapist and a therapist work through the issues that you may have is going to be very helpful for you to find someone that you can confide in and you can let down your walls and you can be emotionally open with. You may have a lot of guilt for the things that you did from the past. So there may be just this heavy guilt that you carry around with you. And so spiritual beliefs are often blocked with this placement. So opening up to spirituality is going to be huge. So opening up to spiritual practices like yoga, meditation, journaling, all those kind of things, those are going to be super helpful for you. You may be drawn to spiritual practices. You may need to have self-knowledge or self-awareness. So self-awareness of what is going on inside of you, of your emotional experience, of those parts of you that you want to deny and disown, but the parts of you that need some tender loving care and some awareness is going to be key for you to develop. So it's key to develop some inner healing, so doing some inner healing work on yourself. Um, and so there may be a fear of confronting what holds you back as well. And there may be a lot of self-doubt that you experience if you have this placement. So what this ultimately comes down to is finding ways to spiritually ground yourself, to heal, and to be in the present moment. That's all that I have to say on Saturn in the 12th house. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found value from it. And if you did, I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel, if you like the video, and share it with your friends if you think that they would find interest in the information that I presented with you today. And until next time, bye for now.